lofty side. So I added this from his comments at the end, that when the duct, when the pulmonary artery goes wide open, means it's like a hockey which we are going to show you again. Now the right ventricular outflow tract, when we talk about right ventricular outflow tract, the right ventricle, from right ventricle arises the pulmonary artery divides into right and left, and right at the back is the aorta. So this is the two views, but we will see another view which we call it the three-vessel view. In that three-vessel view, we will be seeing the superior vena cava as well. But this structure can be copied most of the time and says that your outputs are very normal. That means, can we see the right ventricular outflow tract like this? The similar picture, the right ventricle, the pulmonary artery dividing into right and left. And this rounded structure is the aorta. So that's what is acceptable, and we'll show you the live recording in a minute. So here is the heart, the four-chamber view of the heart. You'll first see the aorta, and I'll show you how to scan these things in a minute. I'm not showing you. So there you can see the aorta, and once you go on the left side, the left ventricle, the right ventricle, and the right ventricle crisscrosses. It crisscrosses, look at my hand, it crisscrosses like this, and we'll show you some images to prove that. So that's the right ventricle. From right ventricle, just on the opposite side is the pulmonary artery. So you can go back and forth between the aorta and the pulmonary artery, and that's the aorta, pulmonary artery, aorta, and that's the right ventricle, that's the left ventricle. So, which one is what? Modulated band is your guideline, the pulmonary veins are your guidelines, and the axis of the heart is your guideline. So these are the three major issues which you have to look for, and that's the aorta, the pulmonary, and you can see. Now we have this pulmonary, the aorta, and we are seeing the third structure, which is the superior vena cava. We'll talk about that once we come to that images right now. So this is, now we talk about short axis view of the ventricle, short axis view of the great vessels. This is very important. What are the uses? To evaluate the ventricular septum, ventricular septal defect, measure ventricular size with M-mode or calipers, whichever you prefer to, measure interventricular septum and left ventricular and right ventricular heart walls for seeing thickness, and evaluate the heart wall contractility with the M-mode. So M-mode becomes a very important landmark. Evaluate the relationship of the aorta with the pulmonary artery, because sometimes we have PX, pulmonary stenosis or aortic stenosis. The size, the caliber of these vessels will change. Measure the size of the aortic valve, measure the size of the pulmonary valve with the caliper, and Doppler imaging of the pulmonary artery and the aortic valves. So the Doppler imaging of the tricuspid valve above and below has to be done. M-mode cursor through the aorta and the left atrium should be done to evaluate arrhythmia. These are the crisscross sections to see the great vessels in the short axis view. This is these slides, and if you remember this slide very well, everything becomes very easy to make the diagnosis. Remember to start with, whenever you're starting the cardiac study, always start from the abdomen first. Where is the stomach? That's the prerequisite we all tend to forget. Then we go up, we see the four-chamber view. Then we go up at angle and see the long axis view. Then we angle it in this direction. We see the pulmonary artery. When we come across absolutely vertical, we come around the ventricle, and then we come around this way. We see the five-chamber views. This is just the rotation of your flow, which is going to show you all these five. Let's go one by one. How do we rotate the flow? The first thing first, always take a transverse section in your abdomen of the penis and see which side is the stomach. The apex of the heart should be on that side. there is a drawing to prove all these things at the end. If time permits, I'm going to show you. So the first scan is that the stomach is here, that's the liver, so it must recognize the stomach. When you go just above it, you get the fourth chamber view. But don't go vertically up. You just pivot the probe up. First, you are absolutely 90 degrees to the stomach and liver. And watch my hand. You just pivot the probe up towards the apex. And once you go in that direction, you get the fourth chamber view. When you rotate the probe in axis direction, you start to get the long axis view of the aorta, and when you get more axis rotation, you tend to get the pulmonary artery, and the more you rotate, you get these three vessel views: pulmonary artery, aorta, and the superior vena cava. Let's go one by one how the things are. The first scan, the stomach. If you forgot the stomach and started with echo, fecal echo, you have missed the big diagnosis. Lots of cardiologists have come to me and said, Dr. Mustaraf, ये बताओ कि ये कैसे पता चलेगा कि ये dextrocardia है या levocardia है? And I said, उसके लिए कोर्स करना पड़ता. And the reason, well, I tell them, of course, I tell them because I'm telling everyone now here. And the reason is that stomach location is first, and that side where the stomach is, that side will be the apex of the heart. So, stomach first. When you pivot the probe, now we call it pivoting. When you're pivoting the probe, you're scanning from the apex of the heart up. So you get stomach is also on the left side. Always on the left side. If the stomach is on the right side, you wait for the last lecture. I'll tell you what happens in that, because I'm going to show you the pictures of that. So here is the fourth chamber view of the heart, which is the apex view, and that's the long axis view of the heart, which is showing the aorta root. And these are not my images, these are AIM guidelines, and it says if you scan in this direction, if you scan in this direction, apex, and as you keep on rotating the probe, you get those axes which we just talked about. So this is the blown-up view of what we are going to talk about. This is the most important view when we talk about outflows. When we say RVOT, left VOT, left ventricular outflow tract, right ventricular outflow tract, which is the important scan, it is diagnosed by, we should call it a three-vessel view. One vessel is the pulmonary artery, the other is the aorta, and the SVC. It is this view which we measure. We measure from here to here, we measure from here to here, and we measure from here to here. This is a drawing, so they made it wrong. The pulmonary artery and aorta is 1 millimeter smaller than the pulmonary artery, normal. So if you measure the pulmonary artery at that level, it says 0.8, this should be 0.7. It says this point 0.5, it should be 0.4. And the SVC, superior vena cava, is half the size of the aorta. Very easy to diagnose. So if you saw this measurement 0.8 and this comes about 0.4, fine. If this SVC was bigger, I was seeing some of the images this morning when I came, a gain of Galen aneurysm, and that would enlarge this SVC. All those problems of the head which may be transmitted will change the size of the SVC. When we have pulmonary artery stenosis and we get this three-vessel view, the pulmonary artery will be narrow, so you say, oh, this is measuring 0.8 and this is 0.6. Something is wrong because Dr. Musarek told me that the VA should be 1 millimeter bigger than the root of the aorta. And then sometimes the anatomists make some mistakes, and that's what they did. They have written I, it's actually not I. This is pulmonary artery, or name arises from the the right ventricle. So that's the aorta, which is seen, which is again the long-axis view. This is also not my picture. This is from AIU, and they have described this picture, which has been copied by a number of authors who are delivering lectures worldwide. And they say it's just the rotation of the probe that you have to swing in a pivoting manner. Once you pivot it, the first is the four-chamber view, the other is the aorta, and the other is the pulmonary artery. So it's the pivoting which makes the difference in that scan. So let's see one by one when we go into that. Why it's important? You must understand the animation first. How this happens. We are actually scanning from back to front. Please note what I said. When we are putting the probe on my hand, I am scanning from back to front. I am scanning from back to front. Now, to understand that, we must know this formation. Look at the way the things are. The left ventricle gives an outshoot to the aorta, and the aorta goes back. The right ventricle gives this blue line, which is the right ventricle, gives an offshoot to the pulmonary artery. Now, if you look at this red line went behind the blue line, which means the pulmonary artery is in front and the aorta is at the back. That is why I said give a sweep to the transducer from back to front, and then you give back to front. What does it mean? Those of you who have been to Egypt, Dr. Salat Umar has been there a number of times because he is the student of Qari Basit, so he must have visited these places. This is the famous Ramses II, who is buried or has been mummified. And when the king would die, they would bury him with the left hand on the right shoulder, and watch me, and the right hand would come above, and that is why the right hand is above, the left hand is at the back. The same principle is that the left ventricle has the branch to the aorta, so it goes at the back, and the right ventricle has a branch to the pulmonary artery, which comes in front. If you have understood this picture, by the way, it reminds me that when Ramses II की body France में treatment के लिए गई, तो उसको 21 guns salute दिया गया France में. When the body arrived, the scene was that जब उसकी body बाहर निकाली गई, उसको guard of honor पेश किया गया. Dead king, Pharaoh II, the Ramses II, and that's the picture of the Ramses II. So, apart from that, we will talk about how the things move on in that direction. Now, this is the schematic diagram to explain to you further that what we mean by that. This is the